All right, part one. Pretty good. Very interesting. James Earl Jones, Wendy. James Earl Jones.
Welcome to the Asia Esterak Hour, where film meets conspiracy and pop culture gets a reality check. From sharp recaps to sci-fi theories and media deep dives, Asia Esterak serves it unfiltered. Let the binge begin.
All right. Welcome back to the Asia Esterak Hour. I'm Asia Esterak. This is crooked and this is going to annoy me the entire, you know what it is? It's because of that. Better. All right. All right. Welcome back to the Asia Esterak Hour. I'm Asia Esterak. Okay, you guys, The Real Housewives of Potomac season 10 reunion part 1. This was a good reunion. This part 1. This is going to be, I think this is probably going to be 3 parts. This is going to be a good 3 parts. This first part was banging. Let's get to the opening scene. So first of all, the opening of the show is a montage of Wendy Osefo herself from her first introduction from 2020 to present day. It was interesting to see how much Wendy has changed. And it's interesting how they highlighted each year, like the next year when she came back with her enhancements. And I stand by this. Wendy, I wish you had never touched your face. You were super cute before. You look great now, but you didn't need to do all that. You were perfect. Anyway, so after the montage and they show all her accolades, everything happening, her getting her YouTube channel, going to the White House, and then her home, and then we get to all the legal stuff. So we get to this opening scene. So it's her and Eddie at home, and they both look exhausted, and they're sitting down on the couch talking about everything that has happened somewhat. I'm going to say this. I was reading online, a lot of people were dragging this scene. I'm going to say this. I would have not done this scene. I don't think this was a good scene. I do feel like they were genuine in emoting their feelings and how they were feeling, but it's almost like you want sympathy for what happened when the reality is you guys broke the law and you committed fraud allegedly. So the only people, even though I fell in love with Wendy this season, I am an equal opportunity dragger, but I will say this. Who I feel for in this instant are those children. And they talked about it, about when they were locked up and she had to call her mom and her sister to pick the kids up. And she talked to Cameron on the phone. You're going to spend the night with, auntie tonight. And that broke her heart. That would have broke my heart too. I'm not going to lie. I got a little teary when they were talking about it. I am not going to lie. I was like, look at me, fell in love with Wendy and now I'm tearing up with her. But it was crazy to see Eddie cry. I just don't think this was good. It was a little cringy because the reality is this isn't something that's happening to you like out of the blue. This is something that you caused by your action. There's cause and effect. And now you're experiencing the effect of your cause. I just made that up. I don't want it to sound cool. That was like a bad dad joke. But anyway, but my whole point is it's hard to have sympathy for you and Eddie because y'all know what y'all did. And I want to talk about that too. This is the other thing. If I'm your legal counsel, shut the fuck up. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, especially during an active investigation. And you are a public figure. I just don't know if this was the best thing to do. Even when Karen did her little thing before she went, she kept it cute, right? And she was actively going into rehab at that time too. Looking on that now, I don't know if that was legitimate, but we're not getting into Karen right now. But anyway, my whole point is, I don't know. And this is why I'm saying all this is because at the beginning of that scene, when they first come in and they sit down in the living room and they're sitting down, Wendy says, and I quote, "I never thought it would lead to all of this," something like that. I'm not quoting. I said and I quote. I just wanted to say and I quote, but and I paraphrase. But it was I never thought it will lead to that. It was something like that. But the first time I watched that, I was like, what is she saying? That sounds like you're admitting to something. Why would you say something? Even something around that. Why are you saying that? Never, it was like never in my wildest dreams that I think it would lead to this. It was something she said like that. And I was thinking, but what do you mean? If I'm prosecuting you, baby, I'm nitpicking that statement because that sounds like you're it's like you're implying something about yourself, like you knew this was gonna happen. Not that you knew this was gonna happen, but you never thought this would happen. And when she said that, I was like, oh, Wendy, shut up. I'm curious what her legal counsel said. I'm sure they addressed her and Eddie filming this. They had to have. I just thought that was a really strange thing. And that was at the beginning of the scene. I just thought this isn't going to get any better. It didn't get much better, but I don't know. Again, I wish them the best, but I feel bad for their children the most in this. I love you, Wendy. Love you, Eddie. Don't feel bad for you. Y'all knew what y'all did. I don't think you should be like thrown under the jail or anything. I mean, as we can see, our world leaders are doing some crazy stuff, so y'all are good. At least you're not eating babies. You know what I mean? So we end that and we get into the reunion. You know how the ladies, everybody arriving, getting themselves all dolled up. Everyone is speculating where Wendy is. It was funny. So Giselle and Ashley are in I don't know whose dressing room they were in, but they're like, how do you think Wendy's gonna come? And they're like, Giselle's like, I don't know. And Ashley's like, I would be coming like a nun. So when they show Wendy pulling up, she arrives a little late, looks nice. She comes in. We go to the stage. So the set is dressed like, I guess, the Preakness, a lot of equestrian themed. It was a nice set. The ladies slowly trickle out. Obviously, of course, Wendy was the last to come out. The theme was red. I thought everybody looked great. Loved the dresses. I think Wendy was definitely the best dressed. Cleared. She looked amazing. So, Andy goes around and kind of says hi to everyone. Kind of takes little shady digs. It was funny. I thought it was funny. So he's like, Angel and Tia, you guys, it was your first season, the noobs. What were your expectations? Tia says that she said normally she didn't come to make friends, or not, she didn't come to make friends, child. She didn't come to get clients. She generally came to, get to know people and make new friends. And she expressed that she had been living in the DMV since COVID, she said. Um, Angel, who actually answered first, but I like to save the best for last, is like, said that she had come to make friends with people and open up. And of course, the camera goes over and Ashley's like, some of Ashley's facial expressions, her and Giselle, because Giselle was like, Angel didn't seem like that. It seemed like that in moments, but not really. Um, but anyway, so he gets to Wendy. Wendy, how are you doing? I'm good. I'm fine. Listen, Wendy was Michelle Obama-ing it. I was trying to make that transition be a little smoother. Anyway, so of course, he's like, well, I guess it's time to address the elephant in the room. And that's when we get into the Wendy package. Um, this was interesting to watch. It was interesting to watch the other ladies' reactions to her package, her watching it, and her reaction. So basically, Wendy is talking about how it was shocking and it shocked everyone, and she was so glad that her kids weren't there. Stacy asked about you. Did you spend the night in jail? And she's like, yeah. She's like, you were there all night. She's like, yeah. Well, how was it for you? How were you? And she's like, I was scared, and then they're asking, were there other people there? And she's like, yeah. She talks about how that she didn't know that in jail they controlled the lights, like when you go to bed, and she just felt like it took away her autonomy. Um, they point out how she's acting very light and kind of, she was making a joke of it. As a fellow Gemini, um, we tend to make jokes out of things even when they're super serious. to lighten things up a little bit. So I understood her jokiness about it. I do think she's 100% taking it seriously. But I think Wendy's one of these where I'm going to smile through the pain and the nervousness. Um, the one thing I will say about this, um, when she talked about how her son, I think Carter, knew what was going on. He had looked at it, and that killed me to hear that. Because I'm curious, like, your kid is reading this and going, my parents were arrested, they're, allegedly for basically stealing. And like, that must be crazy for the kids' experience. And then for Wendy and Eddie, because you got to answer to that. And I feel like answering to your kids would, especially in something like that, would be really uncomfortable. Her telling the story was wild. I'm glad that she told it. I think that's her weird way of atoning in a funny kind of way, because it's like, how do I get through this? Well, let me talk about what I did and my son, and it's like her little. You know what? I'm going off on a tangent here. Let me stop. I just feel like she said that she needed to say that because it is a weird form of accountability, because you're taking it through your son, because like your son knows now. And if your son knows, all his school friends know. And they parents know. Well, their parents are gonna know. But you know what I mean? Like, it's beyond you and your friends. It's now affected your kids. It's wild. This is crazy. And even before I started falling in love with Wendy, I did a video and I said, I hate this for them, because this is something I would not have expected from them. And it just sucks because now we got to watch them go. They're not bad people. You know what I mean? They did some dumb shit. This was stupid. This was some stupid shit that they shouldn't have did. Period. You guys are, Eddie, you're a lawyer. Wendy, you got 50, 11 degrees. Girl, you know what I mean? But it is what it is. They're human. They're not exempt from making stupid ass mistakes, dumb decisions. It's just I'm so annoyed with them. And I mean, you know what I'm most annoyed with these two about? Y'all were so bad at it too. Like, come on. Anyway, um, but I thought Wendy handled herself well. I love that when Giselle said, when they all pointed out how light she's being about it, and Giselle was like, "Are you okay?" She said, "No, I'm not okay, but I'm gonna be okay." I know that's right, Wendy. One more thing I want to add about Wendy, um, was her also pointing out how her son kind of asked them, the way that they knew that he knew is when he asked them where they were. There's a reason I wanted to mention that, because she said when they got in the car to pick him up from school or from the aunt's house, wherever they picked him up from, they were acting like everything was fine, like nothing was wrong. That was crazy to me when she said that, because I'm like, you were just gonna roll through like everything was cool. Because eventually your kids are gonna figure. I get it. I'm not a parent. I totally understand that. But it was just wild that her son knew that they'd went through something, and he knew that they were playing with them. That's what was interesting. And I like that he was like, "Where were you?" That's what I meant by like she's atoning through her kid by even explaining that. It was just interesting because it was like your son called you out a little bit, not called you out, but he wanted to know where you were and you had to address it. And with kids, there's no fluff. You know what I mean? There's no fluff with the kids. You just so that was interesting to me. So I want to point this out. Maybe it's just me, but so in this segment, towards the end of this, Ashley goes, one of my biggest fears. First of all, no one asked your ass, but anyway, one of my biggest fears is going to jail. Like, it's absolutely, like, it's scary to me. It's terrifying to me. And it's interesting because in this group, 2 women have been to jail. And that's just terrifying. Like, that's terrifying to me. Bitch, what? I'm going to say this. Ashley, I feel like sometimes you use I fucking I'm gonna say it. Ashley, I feel like sometimes you do colorist type shit and you'll use words and weaponize the words. Now, I don't know if this is a colorism situation. I don't think it is, but it's interesting that you would use the word terrifying to describe 2 women that have gone to jail in this group. Weren't you married to a dude who had multiple SA allegations against him? You didn't find that terrifying. You didn't find someone's personal space being invaded as terrifying when he allegedly grabbed the cameraman's butt, which we all heard on film. We knew something happened. That wasn't terrifying to you? But two people who went to jail in the group, completely independent of your fucking ass, that's terrifying to you? That shit irked me. I'm sorry. I'm like, what the fuck you mean? It's terrifying. What? Shut up. She pisses me off. It's like that season when Monique, when she implied that Monique, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, but that season when she implied that Monique was drunk driving, Monique, I do think you were drunk driving, but anyway, but it just like, it killed me that she threw that out there and led the charge as if her ass wasn't drunk driving too. Ashley, shut up. Shut up. What's terrifying is that you married Gollum, slept with him, and procreated to get paid. That's fucking terrifying. Next up is Stacy. So they run the Stacy package. Once again, I feel like the audience is divided when it comes to Stacy. I like Stacy. I think she's great TV. I understand why the ladies have an issue with her. She lies effortlessly. And every comment is that they all lie. Everybody lies. Yes. Yes, you're not wrong. They all lie on the show. The issue, as we saw here at the reunion with Stacy, is that she continues the lie. There's no end with the lies. They seem to continue on. And I think the problem is that she'll sit in the lie and own it, own the lie. And I think that's where the problem comes in. And yes, we have seen other people own their lies on the show. We've seen it. I don't know why this is driving me crazy. But anyway, we've seen that. But I think with her, she's almost subconsciously lying at will. And I think that's where the issue is coming in. I mean, we watched it. We watched her lie about inviting her husband with Wendy and Eddie. And then she tried to justify that. She's got the politician's answer. What's funny, Wendy be having them politician answers too. The irony that those two are friends. I like that they kind of pushed through that issue, Wendy and Stacy, but I think with Stacy, I think that a lot of your stuff doesn't add up, and I think the women don't know how to view you. And I can see that. I can see both sides of the audience, us audience members seeing her a certain type of way. I could see people going, well, whatever, everybody lies, yes. But I could also see, I always try to judge it for if I was on the show with them. And I would look at Stacy as somebody that I would kiki with at parties and talk about surface shit with. I would never tell her anything of importance. And I would probably take whatever she told me with a grain of salt, just based off of how she tells little white lies and then she hangs on to the white lies. Even though the whole TJ shit was not a white lie. So they get that out of her. It took forever. I'm jumping all over the place in the Stacy shit. Stacy doesn't fully admit, but it finally comes to light that she did pay TJ because Giselle's like, we ran into him in LA. He showed us the receipts. Like, you didn't think we weren't going to talk about it? I do agree with Stacy following up with the fact that Giselle can be mean girlish and she didn't like that. But I think, Stacy, the shit with TJ was major. Let's keep it real. Speaking of that, I thought it was interesting that Wendy brought this up, and this kind of makes sense. And I kind of feel like by Stacy's reaction, that was it. So the whole naming, they call out the fact that Stacy wasn't forthright. She wasn't forthright about her cannabis line coming out. And it's funny. And again, for the people that go, they all lie. True. I think everybody lies. I think it's just how she does it. And she does it in a very juvenile, sneaky kind of way where it's almost unnecessary. So the whole thing with the gummies, when they call out, they show the footage from last reunion when Giselle asked her if she's coming out with anything cannabis related, and she says no. But then she finally admits that she was having meetings about it. And they were like, okay, then why didn't you say that? Stacy, that's where you fuck yourself up with shit like that. And I could see why people don't trust you. I could see that. Yes, everyone lies in the group. But I think I didn't make the rules as a human being, but I think some things people there's I guess levels to the lies. I don't know. But I think with Stacy, it's shit like that that pisses people off. The TJ shit pisses people off because it's something you could have cleared up. Also with the TJ stuff, I also understand why she would not clear that up and would just die on that hill because it's embarrassing. Listen, shout out to Kenya Moore. I love Kenya. She's in my top 5 favorite housewives of all time. Kenya, you paid Walter to be on the show with you, baby. But Kenya's never going to admit that. And you know what? She doesn't need to. Who cares, right? Whatever. But it is what it is. So Stacy and Tia, I want to talk about this because I kind of was on Stacy's side a little bit with this Tia. Actually, no, not a lot of it. A lot of it. A lot of it. I peeped Tia early on. I didn't not I didn't peep her early on. I peeped her. I did peep her early on. I can't remember if I calls it out in my review or not. I don't know. I probably I did. I did. So Stacy calls out Tia for being fake a little bit because Tia says that when she flew back on a plane with Stacy, she had noticed that Stacy's accent was different, her voice was deeper, and she was using more like local colloquialisms. Basically, she sounded more Detroit, more black, probably. So of course Stacy didn't like that. Stacy's like, "Well, your accent drops too," and she tried to use that as an example. Girl, stop. Stacy, Tia's from England. I mean, maybe she puts on the prim and proper a bit and some bit. Well, I don't know. Maybe you got something going on there. But Stacy calls out Tia and says, "You are not a friend. You're just somebody who would gather information and then go back and tell." She's kind of right about that because she did that shit with Angel, which Stacy points out. Tia, it seemed like you played both sides when it was convenient for you with whoever you were talking to. I did pick up on that because I did think it was weird how you were chummy and cool with Angel. And I'm like, but I mean, it just felt like you had a lot to say about Angel, and then it just seemed like you flip flop a lot. But I still like Tia. I do think Tia is a good addition to the show. I definitely hope she comes back next season. One other thing I want to point out with Tia, she also another thing to the people that's like they're all lie, they all lie. Just another little bit of evidence. Take what you want. But Tia also pointed out how Stacey, you never owned the fact that you did say that you had went out with Chris Samuels. And then at one point you backtracked and said you only knew each other socially. Tia had asked you if you and him had ever discussed his divorce. You reiterated again, I only know him socially. But then later on, you talked about how you and Timo did date other people, and one of them was Chris Samuels. That's why I think people are getting annoyed with you. It's one of the it's one of those things where she's not upfront in the moment. It's like she lies in the moment. Maybe I'm be curious if that comes from like a childhood thing with your parents. I don't know. I always try to it's Sigmund Freud said it all goes back to your childhood. But so I that is what cause for pause for a lot of people because it's like, wait a minute, you've told 3 different stories, and then the whole thing too. And Tia pointed out that that did affect someone else's marriage or separation, divorce, whatever, because Chris Samuels was upset with Monique about that. Um, I think Chris is a little messy though. I mean, even Monique said that. I can't wait for next episode. But anyway, Stacy, they conclude at the end of the Stacy segment. She admits she's like, I need to be more direct. You do. And by direct we mean honest. Cause you just lying. Oh yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. So okay, Stacy. Um anyway, we conclude with Stacy and Tia. Both great additions. I'm really glad that they brought Stacy back for sure. Um, I'm still on the fence with Angel because Angel got on my nerves this season, but then I feel like should she get another season? Maybe we could see her in a different light. She did acknowledge that they did end up buying a house in Potomac. So she's still splitting her time. So she really did buy a house. I thought it was for the show. They even commented on that maybe it was for the show, but who knows? So we get to the angel package. Boy, was that interesting. Fix my eyebrow. So we come out of the package and basically they addressed it because Giselle's like, you had no interest in being friends with anybody here. And she's like, that's not true. And she's like, you said it at the beginning. You were saying it in your like in her confessionals. And of course they roll back the footage to that. And she's like, you think I moved here to Potomac to be friends with Ashley and Giselle? Because they talked when Ashley called her out on, so basically you moved here. But here's what's funny. So they talk about that and how Angel didn't want to be, seems like she wasn't trying to be friends with anybody. And then Angel, of course, is like, that's not true. I opened myself up to you and you guys made fun of me. And then you talked about me with each other and you met up to make fun of me. Now, I don't agree with any of that. I think they were sometimes being mean to you, but I also feel like you didn't do a lot to help yourself either, Angel. And have you never watched a reality show? They're gonna have scenes where they meet up with each other to talk about the person who is involved in the most drama of the day, episode, season, what have you. So, I mean, if you didn't get the memo, a lot of these shows are designed around the mean girls and being mean. And unfortunately, you, and I'm not calling you the weakest link, but for the purpose of this conversation and the context of this season, you might have been the weakest link. And unfortunately, number 2 in the weakest link happens to be one of my favorites. But Kay, real quick, that shit with you like interrupting Angel while she's trying to talk to Wendy, that was not it, honey. What was that? What was that? I, Kay, I love you, but I did not like that. I didn't like that. And it's interesting how Monique, child, how Angel yielded to you immediately. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll wait for you to finish talking and then I'll address Wendy. What was that? And I love how Wendy was like, what kind of relationship is that? I'm jumping a little bit, but I just was like, wow, Kiana, what the fuck? What the fuck? I like that she admitted that she was grumpy this whole season. You was more than grumpy. You was fucking fighting everybody for no reason. I still think you and Wendy might have a little something there. You might have to clear that up. I'm sure we'll get to that next episode, but I don't know, girl. I don't know. I'm jumping all over the place. But the whole thing is, Angel, you didn't seem you it was like you wanted them to accept you unconditionally, but then if somebody had an opinion or said something, then you would need them to apologize and explain themselves. And it's like, I could do a whole dissertation on Angel, but they bring up the catfish comment. And then of course we go back to that scene and Giselle is like, once again, she goes, I really wasn't trying to make fun of you. It's just production. I had asked who this woman was, and they were like, stop playing Giselle, that's Angel. And she's like, what? And of course, Angel's like, yeah, right. Angel, the pictures don't look like you. Period. They don't fucking look like you. Like, what are you talking about? The first one that they show, it's clear. It doesn't even, it looks nothing like you. It looks like maybe somebody in your family, but, and she's dying on that hill. She is dying on that is not a filter, but okay, girl. But she, Giselle's like, we made up. I apologize. I thought everything was cool. I made up with you. The next morning we had another moment about it. I thought everything was cool, but you continued to talk about it the rest of the season and kept bringing it up. She's not lying. You kept bringing it up. Obviously, you kept bringing it up because it hurt your feelings. I understand that. And I think, and Giselle understood that too. But I think the fact that you continue to play it out is an issue. And it's like, you're, again, not that this is an excuse, but you're on a reality television show. All this shit is going to come. People are coming for you left, right, and center. This is where I will disagree with you, Giselle, because Angel's like, you were mean and nasty about me, and I felt like you were hazing me. And she's like, no, Giselle, let's keep it real. You haze everybody. You and Karen, y'all both do it. So let's not. Let's not. In the words of Rich Dollars, let's be clear. But anyway, so Andy, but being said, I want to go back to that. So when Wendy's like, so who was the one that said catfish? And Giselle's like, me. So Wendy brings up the fact that Angel kept just, it was like she wanted it to be Wendy that said it. She kept bringing up the fact that Wendy was the one that said catfish. And Angel actually apologized to Wendy. She's like, I'll admit I had a little extra dip on my chip um when it came to you and our because of our past interactions. So that was cool that she owned up to that. Wendy was like, I thank you for owning up to that. I'll give it to you. Angel, you definitely owned a lot of shit, which was cool. But it's funny that you didn't own the fact that your pictures are filtered. But okay, girl. Listen, I get it. I get it. But it's just like you can't get mad if somebody brings that shit up. But it was funny. So she owns that. But Wendy was like, oh wait, so as that ties into that, Andy reads a question from the viewers that they were so the viewer asked Angel, what did you mean by saying that Wendy had like puckered like butthole lips? And the whole comparison to Forrest Whitaker. So Angel is like, well, I didn't mean it like that. I was just saying, Wendy, sometimes when you get a particular expression on your face, you kind of do this face where you look like him. What? What? So Wendy's like, what are you talking about? Like, what? So she's like, and she goes, Forrest Whitaker, and she goes, so if I were to say, no, Wendy goes, it's interesting that you don't like when people attack your aesthetic, but you chose to attack mine. How would you feel if I said that you look like if I compared you to James Earl Jones? That was funny. Andy was like, not James Earl Jones. Everyone was laughing. Why Stacey talking about God rest his soul? Shut up, Stacey. I screamed when she did it. I was like, yo. It was funny. Angel definitely that caught her off. She's like, well, if that's who you compare me to, but then she apologized and she said, you know what? I apologize. I went below the belt and I'm sorry. Blah blah blah. Cool. I think it's funny. I think Angel watched this season and watched herself back and realized she probably was doing too much. So anyway, they bring up Ashley. I can't remember how they segue into her, but I know it has something to do with this, but I cannot remember. But anyway, they bring up Ashley and talk about how Ashley was very shady this season, but her shade was a little meaner. She was coming off a little mean girlish. So they talk about the shade she threw at Wendy after Wendy and Eddie were arrested, and they show a clip of her. She was singing somewhere, attempting to sing somewhere, and she talks about Zen Win in the pen, and so Andy's like, that was a little mean, So Wendy's like, yeah. Wendy goes, that was mean spirited, and it just seems like, you've always had this personal vendetta against me, um, ever since I came in season one. Now I'm gonna say this. I liked Wendy season one, but I did peep in season one how I felt like she had already watched the show and had made her mind up about certain women. I always got the vibe that she never liked Ashley. And I think Ashley picked up on that shit because they were beefing from jump. And Wendy, you were the first person to throw your 4 degrees. It was in Ashley's face. And of course, they flash back to that. And okay, y'all are gonna have to bear with me because I forgot where I left off. But anyway, so Wendy, I don't think you ever really liked Ashley like that. And I think Ashley picked up on it. That's why I think there's always been this weird back and forth between you two. But this little exchange right here, um, because she obviously Wendy didn't like what Ashley that comment that she made about Zen Win is in the pen, and Ashley apologized, and of course Wendy's like, it's I would believe that, but you've had a vendetta against me, yada yada yada. But so Ashley's like, I don't have a vendetta against you. It just seemed like when you came in, it was like you were vilifying your degrees, like your accolades. You were vilifying your accolades. If I would never do that. And Wendy goes, that's because you don't have any. So then, so then I'm like, Jesus, like Wendy, come on. It was funny because Ashley, you've been taking jabs all season, but then Ashley goes, but I have one social security number. Well, damn. Anyway, that was the end of part one. Really good. Part two is gonna be spicy. Spicy. Anyway, happy Monday. Have a great week. Stay hydrated. Be nice to each other. And I'm gonna go return these videotapes.